Away for another Vaughan boundary.
Well, he's a great fieldsman, Philip Tuffner. He often falls over and he's brought it into his batting as well.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Vaughany Tuffers Cricket Club podcast brought to you by the Telegraph. My name is Ben Wright and I will be joined as usual by Micheal Vaughan and Phil Tufnell. For the first time in the history of this podcast, which admittedly is only 7 weeks old, we will have to discuss some England losses. After a thrilling month with the Red Bull, England's one-day cricketers have brought us back down to earth somewhat. After suffering defeat in the T20 series with India, Jos Buttler's side were then marmalised by the same opponents in Tuesday's one-day international. We'll dissect both defeats and ask if they were simply blips or if changes are needed ahead of the second ODI on Thursday and more importantly before the T20 World Cup, which gets underway in Australia in less than 100 days. Our guest today is the legendary India bowler Ravi Ashwin. Micheal and I caught up with him during the last Test match to get his take on the new era for English cricket, the future of the one-day formats, and how the sport should go about developing new spin bowlers. And as always, we'll be delving into the mailbag and looking at the wider world of cricket, including an incredible fake IPL setup to con gamblers in Russia. Before we get started, cop a load of this.
That's a beauty.
Oh, look at that.
Oh.
For the tape, the suspect is donning a rather fetching red and blue Vaughany Tuffers Cricket Club cricket cap.
And it's
quite a baggy number. It's quite big. It's quite roomy, chaps. I think you could probably see that.
Well, it looks the kind of cap that you could use. It could be used as a cap, but also, to keep the tea warm in the old pot.
Yes. Yeah, you could probably keep rather a large pot of tea warm with
Yes.
Will that fit everyone? Because I reckon it will, because you have got a massive melon.
Well spotted, Phil. You're absolutely right. I have got a huge Swede, and I've been working on the principle if the cap fits me, it will fit everybody else.
And just out of
99% of the population.
Ben, are all the caps the same size?
The one size fits all.
Well, I wouldn't say they're going to fit all, but I would say that they'll be great at the cricket because you'll be able to wear it. And if you want a nap in the afternoon, you just pull it out. It could be a whole head.
Yeah, well, also, if you're at a televised match and you pop that on, you're going to be spotted in the crowd, I think.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Oh, red and blue, they're nice. I like those. Yeah, they're nice. You could probably put your Pat Lunch in there.
Yeah, exactly. Just pop it in under, like Paddington Bear, keep a marmalade sandwich under there.
I think you could put anything in there. You've gone for the baggy green style, Ben. You went for the baggy green.
They are baggy.
Style.
I had to choose between the sort of Australian baggy style and the traditional English.
Well, they're beauties, mate. Well done.
Well,
they are whoppers.
We should talk about cricket for a little bit.
Oh. Hasn't been great, has it?
We come down with a bit of a bump, haven't we?
Yeah.
Why can't England be good at Test and limited overs cricket at the same time? It seems to be either or.
Well, I
think if you had to look at it, Ben, Phil, for so long, the traditionalists, the cynics, have been saying, "Oh, we don't play enough 4-day cricket in the heart of the summer. Oh, that's why the Test team are so poor. Oh." Guess what? We're not playing enough white ball cricket in the heart of the summer. Too much 4-day cricket going on when the sun's shining, Phil.
I know.
It's Alice in Wonderland. We're through the looking glass.
We can't seem to reset both forms of the game, white ball and red ball, at the same time. It's either one or the other, isn't it? It's all in and all out. It was a bit of a shambles yesterday, I must admit.
So this was the ODI against India. England was skittled for 110, and then India knocked them off without losing a wicket. So,
and I think it was about it was £100 a ticket, and it was done by 4:30, wasn't it? 4:00.
There was some people on social media sort of questioning whether there would be a refund because if you only get 30 overs, I think it's 30 overs, you get half the price.
Well, I made my Tuesday golf medal. I was covering the game at home for CrickBuzz in India, and I was due to finish at 10 o'clock at night. I made the 540 medal. I shot 75. I played very nicely, just relaxed, just arrived on the tee and relaxed and played.
Yeah.
So I applauding them for the way that they played yesterday. It got me a medal round. I think that the white ball team are exceptional in terms of the talent and the power that they have, particularly with the bat in hand. And I know the team have just been bowled out for nothing at the over, but I do have concerns about the bowling in white ball cricket across T20 and 50 overs. I just think without Jofra Archer, without Mark Wood, I know Adil Rashid's not there at the minute, but those three bowlers in particular, I think a point of different bowlers.
Yeah.
Without those three, I just think the attack looks like, the batting lineup's going to have to get so many more runs.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Richard Gleeson and Reece Topley were quite impressive in the T20.
Yeah.
But you get the feeling there'll be a lot of weight on Chris Jordan's shoulders if as you say, Mark Wood doesn't get fit.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan's been exceptional in these games, but, up until this series, he's struggled. I like the fact he's gone away from the Yorker. He's not just reliant on a Yorker. He's got different variations. There's a few problem areas. Jason Roy at the top of the order.
Yeah.
He needs some runs. There's the likes of Phil Salt waiting in the wings. As I said, the batting lineup doesn't worry me. It's almost how they're going to fit everyone in terms of the right combinations at the right time against the different bowlers. But the white ball team have just got to be careful that we've given them so much praise. Understandably, they've been exceptional. Obviously, the World Cup winners from 2019. But this next year and a half, I heard the commentary yesterday saying that Rob Keys said he's purely focusing on red ball and the test match team. I'm not too sure he will be. They've just appointed Matthew Mott, who's an expertise in white ball coaching. You've got Jos Buttler, the best white ball player in the world, as the captain. They're not just focusing on test match cricket. They should be good enough. English cricket now should be good enough. Phil, you said at the start, it's almost like we always need a reset of one brand or one format. They should be good enough to be able to continue their white ball kind of standards over the next year and a half to make sure that they arrive in Australia and then India for the 50 over World Cup as near on. I wouldn't say they're going to be favourites, but they're going to be one of the teams that you're going to look for to win the World Cups.
Mike, do you think, obviously Owen Morgan's standing down, there is a little bit of disruption in that dressing room. Do you think that's created sort of a little bit of chaos in there or not really?
Well, you'd have to say, I'm not too sure it has, but from the outside, it will feel like it has, if you know what I mean. I mean, Owen Morgan's not played every game for the last few years, and England have just managed to get on and play the same style of cricket. I thought the one-dayer at the Oval was, a big toss. The ball did swing around in the afternoon, so I'm not even going to look at that game because that's very much like an English one-dayer from back in our day, Phil, when a team would win the toss and it does all sorts in the morning session or in the first session of the game, and you're chasing a low score easily in the afternoon. The T20s were the worry for me. I know they won the last game, but the first two, you look at that last game, no Bumrah, no Bhuvaneshwar, no Chahal. India kind of rotated their team for the last game. And that's the next big thing for England in white ball cricket is that T20 World Cup in a few months' time. And it's what's important in English cricket, and we know more than anyone, Phil, is that you can't take your eye off the ball. No. You can't suddenly just relax and think, we've got this talented squad. We've got all the kind of right tools to be very competitive. You can't just rock up and play. On this aggressive style of white ball cricket, which England play, it's great, but the rest of the world now know exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah,
it's almost as if they know exactly the style that they're going to play, and if the ball moves around and you're playing that aggressive nature, well, there's a chance that you might get bowled out.
And I think India have had a little reset, haven't they, as well?
Ooh, yes,
they seem to have just upped their game a little bit and sort of just become more aggressive as well, haven't they? Especially with the bat in hand, they're not looking to sort of get themselves in there going from ball one as well now, aren't they?
Well, I think India, if you look, they won the World Cup in 2011. They haven't really got close. They got close to a Champions Trophy in the UK. I think that was 2015 maybe. But, with all their talent and all of their players being prominent IPL players, they should be right up there. Yeah. They should blow teams away.
Yeah.
With that bowling, you look at that bowling attack, what they've got. They've got pretty much 3 spinners in most teams. They've got Bumrah, Shami, real high-class bowlers. It's the batting, and I think what they've done with Rahul Dravid and Rohit Sharma, I think they are going to play a bit more like the aggressive way. I don't think they'll play as aggressive as England, but I think they're going to play a bit more aggressively than we've seen over the last few years. So they are a massive threat.
Yeah.
I mean, you talked about the conditions being good at the Oval, but the Indian bowlers were getting to move around in the T20 as well. They seem to be able to make that white ball talk.
Well, they're very skillful bowlers, and it just had that oval pitch yesterday. It just had that rock hard feel to it, with just a lovely little sort of cover in a green grass, and it was carrying through. And when you lose your main guns 3 or 4 early on, and what were they, 26 for 4 or something like that, it is a long way back. You know what I mean? They could have perhaps tried to soak up that bit of pressure, but that's not the way this England side play. They decided to keep on going for it, but it was high-class bowling. It really was, on a helpful pitch, slightly overcast conditions as well. It was gorgeous to bowl on. So, yeah, I'm with Mike there that you've got to perhaps just sort of suck that one up a little bit. But you still, I mean,
he's the best in the world. Jasprit Bumrah by a. Absolutely. It's not even a country mile. It's a global
in all
mile.
formats, right?
Oh, by a mile, he's the best.
Yeah.
He's incredible what he can deliver. He can swing the ball. He can seam the ball. He's got pace. He's got Yorkers. He's got the best slower ball, that kind of dipping off cutter that he bowls. He's cricket smart. He watches the batters. So even just like the David Willey dismissal, he watches and watches. You see Willey moving over to the offside player. He just fires it into leg stump. He's a brilliant bowler. When you think like Bhubaneswar didn't play either, a swing bowler in those conditions. Yeah. Phil, I felt sorry for you because I know you were at the ground in hospitality. And England's performance, it cut into your day out.
It did. It was the one day, Mike, that I decided to pace myself because I thought I was going to be in for a long day. And then by about 2:30, I was just chugging them back, I tell you. I thought, well, I'm running out of time.
Free ale, and the game's not lasting long. Come on.
Did they at least keep the bar open after the game?
Well, they did for an hour, but it wasn't long enough. And I was very disappointed.
You didn't really get your money's worth.
I was sat in for a big sesh. I was looking for a long period of time, and it just got condensed. Speed drinking came into it, I'm afraid.
Yeah, well, I'm going to Lord's tomorrow, so I'm
get there early.
Worried we're going to have I'm going to get there early and start drinking early. Fast out the traps.
Yeah, you got to be. Don't start with a coffee. Coffee and bacon roll straight in. You got to go straight in. No, but
straight into the shots. Straight into the shots.
It was a bit disappointing actually, because I mean there was a wonderful crowd there. Everyone was sort of right up for it and really, really enthusiastic about, as you say, off the back of this Test match cricket and everything. And yeah, listen, it's the way cricket is, isn't it? You do come down to a bump, and that Indian team's high class.
I tell you what, and let's be honest, the Indian team are that good that our guest this week, Ravi Ashwin, is not even there.
I know.
He's not even there, and he is up there with the great spinners.
Yeah,
can bat, got a good safe pair of hands. Yeah. And he's not even in the squad. He's been sent home for a bit of a breather before the West Indies series.
Yeah, he should have been in the Test though, shouldn't he? I mean, they missed a trick there.
I reckon with Ashwin at Edgbaston, India win. And I was surprised that India didn't do their research or look at the New Zealand series kind of closely, because what happened in the New Zealand series was the ball did something for 35 overs.
Yeah.
So basically you need 3 seamers to bowl you 35 overs. And then from 35 to 80, you're rotating one of your seamers from one end. And then Jadeja and Ashwin would have done that work between themselves to kind of hold an end. And Ashwin's, he's up there with the great spin bowlers.
400 wickets.
You name great spin bowlers. Murray Lutheran, he'd play here. Shane Warne, he'd play here. Harbhajan, Kumble would play in England.
Yeah.
Ashwin against England, and you look at his record against England, And with all his little tricks and kind of just nuances of change that he just brings to every pitch and every batter that he bowls to, I would say that Ashwin in the side at Edgbaston, I would pretty much guarantee they would have been probably chasing more than 378. Because I think he'd have got a few runs, and then he bowled England out a bit cheaper in the first innings. Yeah. And I would say he might have made a big difference in terms of the result. Well,
I think it would have made a big difference with his bowling just because of that little bit of mystery. You can't keep coming down and whacking, going at 7 over. You can't take Ashwin for 7 and over. You can't do that when you're on the charge just because of that mystery and because of the skill and the craft that he's got. Okay, Jadeja is a bit one-trick pony. Listen, fabulous bowler, but he's just got that sort of little changes of pace and perhaps the odd arm ball and what have you. But Ashwin's got a lot more in the locker. I think you're right. I think Ashwin plays there. We struggle at Edgbaston, and he hasn't played it. I keep seeing him warming up, Ashwin, every time he comes to England. He's just on a holiday. He never plays. He didn't play last time when they were over here. He doesn't play in the one-dayers. He doesn't play in that.
You kind of you can understand, Phil. Like last year when the series was in, in its kind of full stretch, the balls last year were doing so much more and the pitches were doing so much more, and it did it for like 60, 70 overs. So you kind of get 4 seamers required. But this year, with these Duke balls that are like blancmange, the ball's been doing nothing after 35 overs. So you need craft, you need spin, or you need express pace. You don't need your 4 seamers after 35. So, and we said it at the time. I just thought India got the selection wrong, and Ashwin should be playing against every single team in all conditions. He's that good.
Yeah, but I haven't had a blancmange in ages.
No, I haven't. I don't know where I got that word from. And do you know what? I hate them as well. I used to hate them. They go everywhere, don't they? They end up down your pants.
What? It's like
you know what I mean? Splattered on your pants, not actually in your pants.
Okay, all right, sorry. Good to clarify that.
Your pants might end up like blancmange after you've had your blancmange, if you know what I mean.
Blancmange is a funny thing, isn't it? It's a good word, though, blancmange.
No, it's a great word. Talking about the strength of the Indian side, Virat Kohli, is he going to get into the strongest T20 side for the World Cup?
I think he's under a bit. Listen, Virat Kohli is a wonderful, wonderful batsman. You know what I mean? He's up there with the best in the world.
No dispute, but he's out of form. We got 99 days or something like that.
Exactly, but even the best in the world come under a bit of pressure sometimes, don't they? And, you can't just keep walking around saying, I'm Virat Kohli or I'm this fantastic player. You've actually got to go out there and get some runs and prove that sometimes. Otherwise, the pressure comes on. And as we know, Indian press, and they have such high standards of their legends and their idols and what have you, that he will be feeling a little bit of pressure, don't you think, Mike?
He needs runs.
Yes,
it's the T20 cricket. It's not a case of the name. It's about strike rate. It's about the here and now. It's about the T20 World Cup in a few months' time. Yeah. You look at their batting lineup. Rohit Sharma plays. KL Rahul. He plays.
He comes in.
Suryakumar Yadav has to play. Rishabh Pant for me has to play. Hardik Pandya. So there's 5 players.
Yeah.
Then you've got Jadeja, and then you've got Dinesh Karthik because he's the finisher at 7th. Virat Kohli, Shreyas Iyer, wonderful player. Ishan Kishan, wonderful player. So Virat Kohli, the next series that he plays in, he's missing the West Indies tour. He's going to be under pressure to score and score quickly. It's not about, him getting 100 or an 80 and he's striking at 120. He's got to strike at over 150. That's the era of T20 cricket. So India will obviously give him a chance and hope to see him back in the form that we know he could produce. But I get a feeling that Rahul Dravid wouldn't be scared of saying, I'm sorry, you're not in our best 11 at the minute. I'm sure he'll make the World Cup, but I don't think Rahul Dravid will be scared of saying, I'm sorry, just at this minute, you're not in our best T20 11. 50 over cricket's a different proposition. Yeah. He's got more time and he's just a wonderful player. But in T20, look at England. They don't play Joe Root. Look at Australia. You could say that they're a better team when Steve Smith's not there. Yeah. Kane Williamson's style of play now in T20 cricket, you saw it in the IPL, he struggled. Those kind of players, that they might be just getting overtaken by this powerful new generation. The powerhouses that come out now and strike it easily at 150. I know the style of player I would want in T20 cricket now.
Yeah.
Someone like Surya Kumar Yadav. I mean, you mentioned him. That innings at Trent Bridge was something else.
Yeah.
I mean, there were shots there. I mean, some of the England players were saying there were shots there that they hadn't seen before.
He had good follow-throughs, didn't he? He had a couple of really good follow-throughs, wasn't he? Sort of like...
What, he had some blancmange?
No, but some of his shots, yeah, he was impressive. And listen, as you say, Joe Root, one of the best the best batsmen in the world, as you say, he don't get into the T20. So I don't necessarily know. I know this sounds, a bit weird, you know what I mean? But I don't necessarily know whether Virat Kohli's game is particularly suited to T20 a bit.
In actual fact, Phil,
yeah,
and I'll probably get shocked for saying this.
Yes,
his test game and his 50-over game might come back quicker if he actually stood aside a little bit from some of the T20. He'll play in the IPL. It's just such a big money on it, and you can understand that. But it's not the worst thing in the world for Indian cricket if Virat Kohli is not playing in their T20 team. I think it might prolong his test match career by another couple of years.
Yeah, no, I mean, he hasn't got the ramps or the scoops and everything. Really, he's a classical type of player. And with these, as you say, with the depth that they've got, India of T20 absolute world beaters, it's going to be interesting to see.
So it's a real treat to be joined today by Ravi Ashwin, currently second in both the Test bowler and all-rounder rankings, I believe. Earlier this year, he surpassed Kapil Dev to become India's second highest wicket taker in Test history. I think you've had COVID recently, so I hope you're fully recovered. Thank you for taking the time to chat with us. Obviously, you didn't play in the Test at Edgbaston, but what did you make of the match?
It's been fascinating, and I think it's sort of bringing the Test crowds back, sort of interest back into the game. If anything is to go by of what England's done at home in the last couple of years, and the way Nasser, Micheal, everybody have been talking about English cricket, I've been following all of it. It was amazing to watch. But as a bowler, it's quite scary to think where the game's headed, really, because entertainment's definitely a part of the game, but so you've got the T20 format, the one-day format. The one-day format used to be a format where the bowlers had a bit of a say, but it's pretty much become an extension of T20 sport. As a bowler and a lover of the game, I wouldn't really think this is any precursor for what's to come in front. But it was fascinating to watch.
Ash, Vaughany here. Welcome to, and you are now our second spinner in the Vaughany Tuffers Cricket Club podcast. We are a team. We don't play many matches. Well, actually, we don't play any matches. But you're part of the team. You and Phil Tufnell are our spin twins now. Do you think the result would have been the same if you had played?
Look, I think it's all hindsight, right, Micheal? We don't really know what would have happened in the game, but definitely, as a spinner and someone who takes pride in my performance, I would have loved to think that I could have made a difference. But I certainly believe, having played a lot of T20 cricket, franchisee cricket, hindsight really doesn't make for anything in the game. But I would have loved to have played. I've not played a single test in the England Test series this summer. And the last summer together. It's a very weird and a different Test series. But I thought as a team, the combination that we went in with 4-1 and the way Jadeja batted, all of those stuff really couldn't get me a gig in. But I would have loved to have think that I would have made a difference. But having said that, credit to England for the way they played.
And now you've actually witnessed this England side playing this fashion. I know you watched the New Zealand series, but now you've actually seen it firsthand. If India were playing England in another Test match next week, so it's a continuous series, what would India do differently next week that they didn't do this week?
That's quite a tough question, right, Micheal? I mean, getting into the game, we knew that England were playing a different brand of cricket. But again, conditions in England and the kind of pitches that we might be faced with, I definitely do believe the ball and the pitches are having a role to play with the way England are playing too, permitting a certain brand of cricket. You can't, the pitches that we played on when we came last summer weren't the same. If you had to throw the kitchen sink at it, it probably would be flying backwards. So it's kind of even the balls were swinging a lot more. I think this batch of balls, we've had so many change of balls in this particular Test match as well. So everything put together plays a role. But going into the next match, I think a little bit more awareness and discipline around what England might bring out. The third and the fourth innings aren't going to be the easiest for the bowlers, so a little bit more preparation around that. Whatever said and done, cricket is a game of trying to evolve with every experience that you have and every condition that you face. So having been here, having done it, having faced it, I think learning and getting better for the next week would be the best way to go, I think.
And I know you said it was worrying as a bowler, seeing this sort of aggressive brand of Test cricket. But I wonder whether you think there might be more opportunity for spinners, because obviously with T20, when that first started out, the assumption was that spinners would be cannon fodder. As it turned out, a bit of pace off was a good tactic, and we've now got bowlers obviously opening, bowling at the death. Do you think there might be more of a role for Test spinners if there is this kind of brand of cricket?
Look, I think we need to be careful talking about this brand of cricket being the sort of way forward, because I think at the end, whatever said and done, Test cricket has been the same for 100 years, and you will get these sort of series and games that get played now and then. But still, Test cricket, you will have to hit top of off as a bowler. You will have to bowl those balls on proper length. You will have to respect the conditions. Even for that matter, the way Johnny Bairstow batted in the first innings and the second innings was very different. The game was on the line, 109 for 3. He came in innings number 2. He still, played tight, played close to his body, which he did even in the first innings. I thought he earned his right to be able to, go after the bowling on day 3 morning, if I'm not wrong. And the way he batted in the innings 4 was also very different. Yes, he took his opportunities. There were a few shots that he played, but I thought he earned his right. So I would say it's a brand of cricket that England are playing right now. They're enjoying themselves. They love the freedom that they have in the dressing room. There is a lot of talk about joy coming back into the dressing room, and it is a very, very important component of cricket. The moment you have a lot of joy, you have fun. The reason we all play the game is because we had a lot of fun when we were kids and we loved it. And to bring it back is amazing. And I thought that's one thing that I keep hearing again and again. And that freedom will definitely go a long way in promoting a very, very aggressive brand of cricket. But I really do hope the sanctity of Test cricket in terms of the balance between ball and bat is maintained. And I'm sure it is only a circle, as I say. It just keeps going up and down. But look, Test cricket has remained the same way 100 years. I hope it remains the same for a while.
It's Rav. Do you think this brand of cricket is sustainable, or is it just a little window that we're going there? I mean, we're Test cricket traditionalists. You talk about the 100 years and beyond, but is this little craze that England are kind of taking on? Will it be a craze that you go to Pakistan, England go to Pakistan at the end of the year? Do you see this style of cricket working in all conditions, or is it just in these conditions that they're finding themselves in at the minute?
It's a very debatable question. At the same time, it's a very interesting question. I was watching England bat in the first innings, and they were like some 100 for 5 or 130 for 6 or something. I was just questioning myself. They found themselves at the same situation in Leeds against New Zealand, and they counterpunched with Johnny Bairstow. He had a good ally in Jamie Overton. I was thinking, would it be some sort of a recovery like that? Would they be able to manage that? Because you talk about 40 over mark in England with the Duke's ball, right? You get over the 40 over mark and then things get better to bat. And I was watching it and I was trying to just make a judgment whether Johnny would be keeping on going through the top. Would he keep pulling with 3 men back on the fence for the short ball? And credit to him, he did. But thinking backwards, if Johnny just hits one of those shots straight into the hand, 109 for 3, you look. Even in innings number 2, he couldn't go through the line over the top, because in a test match, the wicket does slow down. You get a bit of up and down bounce. You get something in there for the bowler. That's where I think batsmanship comes to the fore. That's where I think a calculative batsman or a calculative team unit come to the fore. And I think whether it's the same brand of cricket that you will continue to play all along is very debatable. But I think players who are able to make that switch and adjust to conditions and game situations, I keep saying the same thing. I think there is a point of time in the game where a batsman or a bowler, you play for yourself when you start the innings, when you bowl your first ball. But the moment you're in and when you're riding the horse, you need to be able to make that switch and say, hey, that's the scoreboard. That's the game time. This is what my team needs. And I thought, despite all those things that you talk about, the brand of cricket, when push came to shove, I think a lot of good batting was on display, both by Joe Root and Johnny Best. So I think the way Alex Lees and Zach Crawley got away at the start really gave them that buffer to be able to still bide their time and then go after it. So sustainability is definitely going to be a question, because when those things happen, and when you hit one in the air and get caught and the game cracks up, how does the dressing room react? How does the media react? What does Nasser say? What does Michael say? All these things will come into play. Will definitely come into play. But I think a brand of cricket will be promoted by a greater set of people, a larger. Let's say Robert Key is around here, Baz is there. You've got Ben Stokes, the new captain. All of them coming into the fore and saying, okay, hey, you know what? We won games like that. We will lose that. We will lose a few, but we will continue playing this way. So it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to watching it, but I would also love the balance between ball and bat retain.
I mean, I don't know if you saw Ben Stokes' quote afterwards. He said there'll be teams that play better than them, but there'll be no team that will be braver than this England side. What kind of message does that send to everyone?
It's again, like I say, right? Conditions are king when it comes to Test cricket. I don't have to tell you, Michael, how conditions will change. You go to Australia, the same ball that's going through third man will go to slip, because it's going to be a bit quicker. It's going to be a bit more steeper. That's the same thing in South Africa. You go to India, you're going to get those wickets that will spin. That's the same in Sri Lanka. You will get conditions that are different. Can you adapt and still play the same brand of cricket? You might be in a danger where you might get bowled out and the test match done. And the conditions in England, as I'm seeing now, is getting better for innings number 3 and 4. Batting is a bit more harder, innings 1 and innings 2, innings 3 and 4. It does get a bit slower. It does get a bit more flatter. If you look at the pitch, even that we played at Edgbaston, it was darkish for the first 2.5-3 days, and then got whiter and whiter. And I did believe that it was going to get better as the game got on. So it's not going to be the case in many of the other countries. You probably go to an Ashes and play at Perth. You're going to get those cracks, and it's not going to be day 4, day 5. You can't go through the line when the ball's pitched up. It's not going to be the same. But there is, risk versus reward. They are taking the risk. It is coming off. But when the risks don't come off and it falls on the other side, how much of it is going to be sustainable is a question we'll have to wait and watch. But as of now, hats out, and I think they're playing some brilliant cricket.
If I say Joe Root, where do you bowl to him?
Look, I think Joe's got a lot of good things going for him. If you're asking from a spinner's perspective, I think he uses his feet really well. Goes front and back in equal measures. He's got a great stride forward, and I think he accesses the square of the pitch a lot. I did make a lot of plans for him every single test, believing that I would be playing. So it would have been nice to see if those plans matched up how it came out.
Did you write plans down, or did you just have them in your head?
I actually do write them down. I write them down. I follow batters. I watch a lot of footage and see where they're going. And part of the game, we speak about cricket, we speak about technique, we speak about tactics. But I think whatever said and done, it's very similar to living your life and living one. It's one-upmanship. If you can get one-upmanship on your counterpart, or your person you're coming up against, be it Joe Root, Steven Smith, Virat Kohli, anybody, it's a very, very important tool and an edge to have for a bowler. So I believe in making these plans, and when I make these plans and write them down, I know where I need to be working on building up into the game. So I've done this for a considerable length of time in my career. I've made a lot of changes. People have raised their eyebrows all through my career about what I do, how funky I get sometimes. But I believe that I must succeed or fail on my own terms, and always be, not one of those who's waiting for the result to happen and try and make it happen. It's a double-edged sword, but I would have loved to, bowl at Johnny and Joe and see how aggressive they might have been, and it would have been a very important learning to take back home with whatever I done.
Can you give us a bit more insight into that process of preparing to face different batsmen? I mean, how much footage do you watch, and what do you go through as you prepare to bowl to them?
Look, I think all batsmen, when it comes to facing spin, most batsmen that we come across, we play a lot of tests against, England and Australia. Or we played in the last 10 years that I've played for India. We play big test series. We play 4 and 5 test match series. Most batters are very combative when they want, with respect to what they want to do when it comes to facing up to spin, or precisely me or Jadeja when they turn up. And every time there is a small subtle change, they want to bring and access new areas. But largely, I think what has stuck out when I try and make these notes are people don't change from series to series. They change over a certain passage of play. It's about they make small changes. Batters make small changes like once in a year or once in 2 years. If that is to be said, Joe has considerably increased his amount of sweeps and reverse sweeps and literally stopped accessing anything down the ground for spin. That's something that I did notice, and certain pitches will promote and help you play that sort of cricket, but certain won't in certain conditions. The amount of bounce that a pitch might have, if there is a little bit more bounce and a little bit more hold, those kind of shots suddenly go out of the window. So that's just an example of what I think and how I build up into the process. And if I want to be particularly, let's say I want to access a particular region, I don't want to leave the stumps or something. Could I go around the stumps? There are times where I don't go around the stumps at all for a year, and then I need to keep going around the stumps, practicing it so that I can start going around the stumps for a particular series. I try and bowl with and without loading. Can I cut the loading time? Can I cut the jump time at the crease for batsmen that are generally premeditating shots? You get a lot of batsmen who will premeditate shots at you rather than just playing what's coming out of the hand. If you can actually cut their premeditation using different or very subtle tools at the crease for a spinner, you're half the way into the battle. You've got control exercising over the batsman, and then you can pretty much plan out how you're going to get him out. So these are things that have worked for me over the last 4-5 years. I've managed to understand it and also be able to apply it with respect to my bowling. So yeah, that's pretty much how the process works.
And Ash, is that just you that's coming up with these ideas, or do you sit with a coach or a player or two, or is it just your mind that's creating these? You're basically asking the question of the batter in different ways. You're trying to maybe produce a different action or two. You're trying to, maybe bowl the ball a bit sooner than the batter expects, which is very, very smart thinking. But is it just you that's coming up with these ideas? Have you got a guru that we don't know about that sits with you?
No, I think I definitely use every aspect or every person that I can within the team. I spend quite a bit of time with the analyst, have a reasonable relationship with him. So in case he understands what I need and how I really work it out. So he will be able to bring out something new that's happening around the world. So that's why I have a relationship with them. But largely, I believe this is just my belief. An engineer, I'm an engineer by profession. So somebody who's an engineer studies to be an engineer, but a cricketer never studies to be one, right? We play and we practice and we routinely do the same thing again and again. So when I started playing international cricket, when I got an IPL contract and all that, I was very intrigued about the academic aspect of the game. So I started a cricket academy in Chennai as I started playing as well. A lot of people raised eyebrows because it's against the conventional thought. You've got the Root Academy in England, all those stuff. I mean, you guys are a little more forward thinking in terms of how those things pan out from a post-retirement plan as well. But I used to play a lot of gully cricket, tennis ball cricket, and some of my gully cricketing friends wanted to take up playing cricket ball. And my initial experiments were all with them, trying to get them to play. And it was very funny. They would get into really awkward positions when they batted, when you threw balls at them. Some of those conventional thoughts of your head falling over, the leg going across, all these things I started realizing were all thoughts that are conceived in your head. Those are all resultant actions. I believe there are 4 aspects to playing the game, playing the sport, which is way beyond technical. We speak a lot of technique and tactic, and in a span of 2 or 3 or 4 years time where I started to build and coach our own coaches with terms of how I believe coaching must be, I realized I learned a lot about the game. So the game is mostly it's mostly played with the subconscious mind. You train the subconscious mind, but we do exactly the opposite. We try and coach the conscious mind, which is kind of crazy. And then there are voluntary and involuntary actions. These are the 4 aspects of the game which make it really, really simple. It's just that we can't layer into each one of them and identify them and let those things be for the cricketers. So the more and more I went upon this path, I want to empower children. Children might not necessarily understand all these 4 things. So try and empower them over a period of time, such that they don't have to necessarily listen to conventional coaching thoughts and, confuse themselves as they build a career. So all these things kind of gave me an edge. And the more and more cricketers I saw, the more and more kids I saw, I could apply something back into my game. And I definitely did believe that made a massive difference.
And given that this is your approach, how important is data to it? And how has that sort of changed how you approach the sport?
It's a very difficult question to answer. I think it's a data-driven world right now, the sport. The IPL's got heaps of data. And even when you're sitting in the comm box and analyzing a game, there is a massive amount of data that gets crunched and given to you. But I believe data is for consumption of the audience. In as much as I believe in analytics, I don't necessarily think that it makes a massive difference immediately. Like for example, somebody could be struggling, a left-hander could be struggling when I bowl around the stumps. And over a period of time, the left-hander could have worked it out. And it could be against Dilruwan Perera of Sri Lanka that he struggled. And Dilruwan Perera might be bowling, from a wider arc than I do from the neck. And, it might not necessarily be the case for me. His release points could be different. His point of release at a height could be very different. So I don't think we have necessary pinpoint precise data to be entirely going after something. But if there is something notable and if there is something drastic, you can definitely take and apply it in your game. But I believe there is a lot more that can be done with analytics and video technology and stuff like that for the cricketers. But yes, from an end user point of view, for a consumer, I think data is fantastic.
One of the great spinners of the game, and I do believe if the Indian team pick you, and I think they should pick you in every game, but if they pick you more often, I do think you're going to get to 600, 700 test match wickets as long as the body stays fresh and your mind is ready to go. Spin is a talking point that we have in the UK a lot. So I'm going to put you in charge of English cricket. I know you probably don't want that job at the minute, but I'm going to put you in charge of English cricket. What advice are you going to give England to prepare the next generation of spinners? What is the best advice that you can give English cricket to make sure that in 7 to 8 years' time, we've got 5 or 6 spinners that you could say any one of them could be playing test match cricket?
Look, you guys play I'll begin there. You play a lot of Ashes, and it's a very important aspect of English cricket. You take a lot of pride in it, which I absolutely love. And whenever Ashes doesn't go really well for you guys, you come back to the drawing board, try and make plans for what needs to be done, how you're going to change things and stuff. It happens a lot in India as well, Michael. And 10, 15 years ago, we wanted to play all over the world really well. We made this. We started making pitches in first class cricket, which were centering around promoting fast bowling, promoting people to come through. And yes, we've started producing a lot of fast bowlers now. We've got a lot of bowlers who can come up and crank it up at 140. And we also promote a lot of bowlers who can actually come and put the ball there and still be very successful, at 120s and 118s and 116s, which happens a lot in England as well. I play county cricket here. In the bid for all of this, even in India, I think first class cricket doesn't promote spin bowling at this point of time. Whatever said and done, promoting spin bowling is about allowing the spinner to repeat a lot of those balls in match times with varying conditions. We can debate this till the cows come home, but the fact remains that the spinner needs to be able to fly straight just like anybody else. And the repetition required for a spinner, in fact, is way more greater than any other skill that's being applied in this game at this point of time. And I think in England, one of the problems is you just do not have people to be able to fly the trade in the first innings at all. The first innings is a done and duster for the spinner. The second innings might bring the spinner into the game. So I definitely think there is a situation where you need to have more and more of those spinners going in from, at least, let's say you've got about 16, 17 county teams here, at least 8 or 10 of them allowing spinners to be able to ply a trade. That's the foremost of it. And also coaching around spin bowling is still very ancient. Talking about body, talking about the body going towards the target, front arm. These are sometimes when I hear all these things, I find it very, 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 very funny, because there are only two things that you can control in any form of the bowling, which is your run up and which is your loading point. People talk a lot about it, debate a lot about it, but never really empower the spinner to be able to make his own decisions. And it's still centered around flight, revolutions, and positions. And they talk about finger spin, which is how I make a living. Finger spin, and they talk about wrist spin in a very different manner. But still, people do not understand finger spinners need to use their wrist, and they can't really seem to figure it out. So I think the two aspects of the game need to come together, where you should be able to give a lot of game time and a lot of bowling time for spinners, which is of foremost importance, and also to be able to empower younger kids to be able to take spin bowling with a lot more understanding, which definitely makes a difference. Even back home in India now, we don't have a greater crop of spinners because we have promoted fast bowling for 10 years. So it's a cycle, it's a cycle of the game. We want to address something and we end up losing something else. So then the cycle turns around. We want to promote that and we end up losing something else. So I think there needs to be a carefully struck balance in terms of how we are going to promote it.
And I was going to ask you, we're all kind of scratching our heads in the UK. I hear a lot of people, you've got to make them spin the ball really hard, which is fine, but how do you do that? How do you suddenly say to a young kid, just spin it really hard? What are the 1 and 2 principles in spin bowling from an early age that you have to get right? So you to go to that, you talk about the PlayStation levels. To get from 1 to 2, what are the principles that you need?
Look, I think firstly, having played county cricket in England, I can vouch for this. There is this romantic way in which people fall in love with the way the ball comes out of the top. They overspin, For example, Nathan Lyon bowls a lot of overspin. That's because he's brought up in Australia. When you bowl overspin in Australia, the ball hastens up the pitch. It pitches and actually comes. It bounces. You can't go back and hit it through the offside. For a right-hander, you can't just crunch it through, which is meat and drink for people playing in England. Because the moment you bowl overspin, the ball sits in the pitch and it doesn't bounce or hasten anywhere close to what it happens in Australia. And that's why when you see English batsmen going to play Ashes, the moment they go on the back foot, it hits the blade, it hits the sticker, and they're lacking for time to cut the ball or punch it through the offside. And when Nathan Lyon or anybody bowling offspin comes over to England, anywhere but in Edgbaston or at Manchester, the ball wouldn't hasten when you bowl overspin. It will sit in the pitch. And the moment that happens, you're thinking, hey, am I going wrong? Am I not hitting the right length as a spinner? So the first and foremost thing for a spinner, in my view, is to be able to understand different air speeds. How can you bowl different air speeds in a subtle manner and still get the batsman blocking off the front foot? So understanding run-up speeds, understanding your jump points, understanding your loading points. These ways seem very complicated as I'm saying it, but if you can empower people to be able to understand this when they're bowling, it's not as complicated. Because cricket, I believe, is one of the greatest self-taught sport. And we still lay emphasis on somebody giving us a magic potion and our cricketing career changing. That's not how it works. It's having the ability to be able to give a lot of answers to questions, a lot of options, and one of those options might be suitable for someone. And that's where I think we need to lay emphasis. And spin bowling is no different. In fact, it's even more complex on those lines.
And just, Rav, just brilliant on spin. That's some absolute gold that you've given us there. The IPL, Rajasthan Royals, Jos Buttler, your old mate from Mankad in the days of the Mankad. How was that relationship this year?
I haven't seen a better person than Jos, to be honest. And it was. By the way, I haven't really congratulated him because of the Test match he's got the white ball captaincy of England, and I'm sure he'll do really well. I think they're contrasting personalities. Firstly, Ben and Jos. So hopefully Baz will be able to get the Bazball going, flying higher in the white ball game. But yeah, Jos was amazing. Getting to know him a lot more. an absolute team man. And I thought he was in a purple patch that all the batters want to be. And I've seen many batters stay in that purple patch, and Jos found himself in one of those purple patches. A very, very unique sort of a person. I haven't seen somebody who's so calm and yet so aggressive and yet so hardworking. It's kind of lethal. And it was a great campaign for RR this year, and we had a great side. Most importantly, a side of very, very good human beings, I think.
Did you have any middle practice against Jos? And did you actually try and mankad him in practice just for a bit of a gig?
Unfortunately not, because there was only one batter in the net. I would have tried, given him a couple of shots and said, well, you need to practice for this. Stay indoors.
We had Trent Bolt on an earlier episode, and we asked him how he would have bowled to Jos Buttler if he got the opportunity. You may do. I mean, how do you, somebody in that kind of rich vein of form, how would you be bowling to him in T20?
I think, again, like I said in the earlier topic, right? It's about T20 cricket is even more about the team. It's even more about the situation. It's even more about the scoreboard. What is relevant? Sometimes going at 10 and over could be very, very important for your team. You don't have to necessarily, try and be going at 5 or 6 and then, going for 15, 20. So having that realistic thought when somebody is going and batting well, what the scoreboard is, what the conditions are. Do I get hit in the sides? Do I get hit in the straights? Where am I blocking fielders? All these things will play a decision. There's nothing written in stone that this is exactly how you should be bowling. So you must, with all the data, with all the analytics coming through, those things can be set up for the early half of a batsman's innings. Once that's done and somebody is going well, all the other aspects of the game, your adaptive nature of how you play the game will come to the fore. And that's exactly what I'd be doing. It's no different from what I would be doing to someone else. But I don't know where he would love it and where he might not, which will play a role. And at the end of it, as I said, T20 is the greatest team sport that cricket has seen, and you must be looking at the scoreboard.
Yeah. Trent said he'd bounce the snot out of him, so slightly less analytical.
I wish I could do that, but I'm not. But I can't.
Trent Bolt also said on the pod about in 50-over cricket, he believes you should go back to one ball. The two new balls has made it too hard. The reverse swing's gone out of the game. The art of Wasim Akram style, Waqar Yunis back in the day, bowling those reverse swinging Yorkers. Would you agree with that, Ash, that going back to one white ball would make it more of a balance between bat and ball?
For starters, I would say we can go to one ball that was used in 2010 or 29 because I think the ball is not the same anymore. Because as I grew up, I watched the one-day sport, and I'm sure Glenn McGrath is great, and he's an amazing bowler. But the ball is not definitely doing as much as what it used to be doing. For the first 15 overs of the game, you just cannot take things lightly. You can't be hitting the ball through the line, and you can't be tossing the ball away. I think one-day cricket, the beauty of one-day cricket was the fact that there was a lot of ebbs and flows left in the game. Somebody needed to just bide their time, take the game deep, and the ball would be reverse swinging. It's so hard at one point of time, 60 balls, 60 to get with 7 wickets in hand, and you're backing the bowling team to win, and not anymore. That's going to be a canter now. And I think after a point of time, I think even me, as I'm a absolute cricket badger and a nut, and for me, I switch off the telly after a point of time watching the one-day game, and that's frankly very, very scary for that format of the game. I think because those ebbs and flows, when they go missing, it's not cricket anymore. It's just an extended format of the T20 sport. So I think if one ball is something that would work, and even the spinners would come into play, you will have a lot more spinners bowling at the back half of the game, and they are bowling right now, but you might see a little bit more slowing of the pitch or slowing of whatever it is, and then the reverse swing might come back into play, which I think is very, very crucial for the game. You need to have those ebbs and flows.
So do you think that's the format that's in the most danger then?
If I made it sound like that, I don't know. But
because there's been a lot of debate about Test cricket, obviously, and then T20 coming in and the 100 here in the UK, and the crowded season and lots of different formats, and the assumption that maybe one goes. There's always been, T20 has obviously cemented its place in the season. I wonder whether ODI is the one that might actually have to give away eventually.
it's a question of relevance, right? And I think ODI cricket needs to find its relevance, needs to find its spot. And you brought in the 5 fielders rule were brought in first up, and I thought it took away a bit of charm from spin bowling in that format. You needed to adapt differently, and then they brought in the 2 new balls, which gave I don't know who it gives an edge, honestly, at this point of time. But going back to 1 ball, and it will give something back to the bowlers at the back half. You can't keep piling on those runs with 6, 7 batters in the team, and the emphasis on batting deep is so much more greater in T20 and one day format. And suddenly you realize with 1 ball, 1 white ball, and something coming back into the game, that your bowlers are equally important. And I think at least in one day format of the game, T20 is definitely a batsman's game, and it should be that. It's the greatest marketable format that we've got. And when it comes to the one day game, I think the bowlers should come back into play for the ebbs and flows of the game to be in place.
And that's just, again, I'm going to give you a powerful job of world cricket to look after the game. With all these different formats, different leagues, the IPL 2 months of the calendar pretty much locked in now. It might get a little bit longer in time. If you're the boss of the ICC, what are you going to do to make sure that you're protecting this great format that we love, Test match cricket? You're going to allow leagues around the world. You've got T20 World Cups. You've got 50 over World Cups. How are you going to fit it all in?
It's hard. It's not a job I would want to take up.
Neither would I, to be fair. I like talking about it.
It's not a job that's going to be easy to do. But I think relatively, when you have a T20 World Cup, you're just centering all your bilateral series around T20 cricket, which is something they have done at this point of time. The WTC is a great start for Test match cricket. I'd love to see a little bit more structure around Test cricket. The ways and means with which, look, I think the more and more teams, I repeat this, and I totally believe this. The more and more players that play Test cricket and there is a change in it. A lot of cricketers want to, specialize in playing towards T20 cricket, which is amazing. You're going to get a lot of those white ball specialists. But the more and more players vie to be a Test cricketer, want to play red ball cricket, you're going to get a greater quality of T20 cricketers in the future. Because Test cricket, I've had this debate with some of the greats of the game as well. But they say it's very different. The T20 game is all about power hitting. It's all about bat swing. It's all about hip drives. And Test cricket is all about playing it tight. It's very different. Still, people can hold their own. But what Test cricket teaches you that T20 want is lifestyle, is adaptability, is dealing with pressure, is understanding the ebbs and flows of the game, is calculation. And all these things make you a far better and a superior cricketer than just being a T20 cricketer. So I'd love to see a little bit more context around Test cricket, get more nations involved, even if it's not going to be the greatest of, advertisement to the sport. Find ways. I mean, there can be a possibility where Ireland, Scotland, Nepal, some of the other teams could be playing another league, and suddenly they could be qualifying, have quarterfinals in WTC where some of these teams can come. They might just get, beaten black and blue in the quarterfinals against a bigger opposition. But that's where the learning starts. We all get better by losing more than actually winning. So for me, widening the net, widening the horizon of Test cricket, getting more associate nations in, and also creating context around home and away Test series in the same year. That'll be something to look forward to. Even if it's not a 5 Test match series, having home and away in the same year. Like it could be, for example, if it's an Ashes year, England will play 10 Test matches, 5 home and away. And they could play 2 against New Zealand home and away. And that's about it. That's the season. That could very well be a structure between some of the other teams. So people are looking forward to it. And also more structure in 3 years span. Almost every team would have played each other home and away. And then will be vying for a spot.
Great answer. I think you've got the job.
Now, Ash, on our podcast, we've got an 8-year-old girl called Megan who is only just started cricket, and she's got a question to ask.
Hi, Ravi. I want to bat like Kohli, but I keep getting out. Bowled, caught, you name it. So, shall I just stand there and block it?
I mean, I think Kohli gets bowled and knocked over as well. So he doesn't block it. He doesn't continue blocking it. So I personally think for any young kid playing the game, and sort of starting off with a game. If they're getting out again and again, the only way you get better is again hitting those balls. We again bark down the wrong route. Even if it's preparing a child to being a test cricketer, the first thing that we do in a coaching center is to be able to allow the child to hit the ball and hit the ball as hard as possible.
Megan asked you about Virat. Come on, give us a bit about Virat. I saw him at Edgbaston. He wasn't the captain, but he seemed to be the captain. That's from where I was watching from. He was very animated. He was very into the crowd. He was very into the England players. Was that Virat trying to prove something, or trying to prove that he's still got this aggressive streak, even though he's not the Indian Test captain anymore?
Look, I think Virat is who he is, and despite all whatever happens, this is exactly how he leads the ring, even when he is at home. And his energy is very infectious. Sometimes bowling in India, and recently we had test matches where he a couple of test matches, I can't remember exactly, he wasn't playing those games, and I actually missed him on the field. The kind of energy that he brings to the table, the man standing at short mid wicket, stopping those singles, and looking for those catches, talking to batters. That's exactly what makes him, and he loves that. And when he does that, he definitely bats better as well. And that's my viewing of him. The more and more he's in the game, the more and more charged up he is. He bats so much more better. And I believe even for the last 2.5 or whatever considerable period of time, I saw your post yesterday comparing Joe Root and Virat, the number of hundreds. Even though he might have not got the hundreds, I still believe he's batting beautifully. And the way he's batting, it looks like he's probably got a double hundred in the last game. And it sometimes can happen. And as a batter and as any cricketer, you might be bowling really well, but the wickets will be taken by somebody else. And that's exactly how it works in this game.
I think we all want to know. So Virat, we see him on it's like a Duracell battery. That when he's on the pitch, he's like, he's explosive. Once he gets in the dressing room, does he recharge the battery? Does he kind of sit down and not say anything? I
seriously can't get it. And he's about 34 now, and I sometimes wonder where he gets all those energy from, because if you're going to spend that sort of energy on the ground, I'd be drained. I don't even need to think about sleeping. I just doze off as I'm going back. And the guy, it's something that you can envy as a cricketer, as a person watching him. But at the same time, it is what makes him, and that energy that he's able to bring is exactly who he is or what he is, and whatever he's done on the field is exactly because of that. And you're right, that energy is infectious. At the same time, that energy just makes you sit from afar and say, wow, is this guy from this planet or is from somewhere else? Where is he from?
Well, that was tremendous to get Ravi Ashwin on the pod.
Absolutely.
What a great talker on the game.
Oh.
I mean, whatever he decides to do when he finishes, I don't think he's going to be struggling for requests of people wanting to have him working. Sorry, my gardener seems to be blowing things towards my window as we speak. But there you go. He's gone by now. Let's get on with it. Yeah, brilliant. I mean, the fact that he was, he's an engineer. He almost takes that kind of strategic thought processes of being an engineer into his bowling, all the different variations. Yeah, really thoughtful.
Yeah, one of the great cricketing brains, I think. There.
Well, lots of spinners are.
Yeah, but what happened to you, Phil?
No,
what happened, Phil?
Listen, Mike, us spinners, we have to think about it, because we're actually only bowling at about 50, 55 miles an hour instead of 90 miles an hour. And that's what fascinated me as well. Just the way he thinks about everything. Every ball is delivering. It's a bit like snooker. Like snooker sometimes when those players are sort of thinking 3 or 4, 5, 6 shots ahead. You know what I mean? And I think Ronnie O'Sullivan said he's even thinking 10 shots ahead. It's about how you build it and put it all together. The other thing that was interesting me, Mike, is about the 50 over game.
Yeah. Yeah, he said there's many times that he switches it off because it's a bit boring. You go back to Trent Bolt, what he said about the the ball. I do think that we need to go back to one white ball. It is becoming a game. Yes, you get entertained and you see some shots and you go, wow, whoa, it's gone in the stand again, fantastic. But, I do think we need to make it a balance. The best one-day game that I've seen, I know it was England winning the World Cup, but the Lord's final was a brilliant kind of game of cricket because it ebbed and flowed and it wasn't a high score and there was a bit there for the bowler. It just did enough. They're the best one-day games for me, where you have to think about the way that you're playing rather than just think, all right, I'm just going to try and launch it into the stand from ball one. Really smart guy is Ravi Ashwin. He's not convinced by Bazball, Phil.
No,
he's not convinced. He thinks it might come unstuck in certain parts of the world.
Well, we know it will do. We know it will do, won't we? They're almost Brendan McCullum and the guys have said, listen, it's not going to happen every time. And we know that. It's just whether you can take your foot off the gas, realise that it's not going to happen every time, and then just sort of react instead of just keep ploughing on. Sometimes you've got to play cricket smart in the longer game, and I agree. And in the 50-over game, sometimes you've got to change heads a bit, haven't you? And I think that's what bores Ashwin a little bit. He just doesn't like the one mode all the time. Games of cricket are about twos and fros, ups and downs, aren't they?
Ben could do with a change of head, Phil.
Yes. Get an even bigger one.
Well, if I wear the cap, maybe it get hot and it will start shrinking.
One of those Swiss balls that you do your stretching on.
This is brilliant.
No, come on.
I'm going to put up
sorry, Ben.
I'm just with the interface. I'm just going to have to use the widescreen TV to get my head on.
No, very interesting. World-class performer. I mean, up there with the best there's ever been. Best there's been, Ravi Ashwin, I think, isn't it?
No, he's up there. He's up there in this era of obviously great spinners. But I can understand, you do hear that he has the odd kind of running with captains and coaches. And he's probably because he's thinking so much all the time.
Yeah, you would imagine he's got opinions, right?
Yeah, and that's great. Bring that into my dressing room all day long. I'd have that. Yeah. Love it. Love anyone that's going to try and think about the game, do things slightly differently. And as a spinner, particularly in this era, if you don't do things slightly different, it's like when he said, your run-up has to change. Yeah. Your release points have to change. You have to get one to the batter earlier or later. Yeah. Because you've got to try and unsettle the trigger of the batter. Brilliant. I hope young spinners listening to that interview will take something from it because he gave me a great insight into his mind, his game, and trying to be one step ahead of the batters in this era.
And spin bowling has changed as well, Mike. Beforehand it used to be, I can put the Anki down on a good length, and I can remember Ray Illingworth saying to me that, can you hit that Anki 6 out of 6? And I said, well, yes. But then the batter knew exactly where it was going to go, and he'd just be coming down the track and hitting you for 6 all the time. That sort of the difference in mindset and about constantly, as you say, release points, wider the crease, close to the crease, different paces, different deliveries. Spin bowling has evolved a great deal now as well. Scrambled seams. I was always given that half red, half white ball, as a kid.
Oh, yes.
And you've got to get it going down, so the red's facing you or the white's facing you every ball. Now it's different positions in the hand, scrambled seams, almost like wobble seams, like the seam bowlers do as well. There's so many different little nuances in spin bowling now. I found it fascinating.
Right, before I let you guys go, we need to talk about this incredible story out of India. Did you see this? The fake version of the IPL.
How can
it's
that
good. I like it. No, I like it. So they had the IPL kits on, didn't they?
Yeah, they had the kits on.
And they conned the Russians into gambling on it.
Yeah, so they got they were filming it. They were using the same sort of graphics. They even had a commentator who could do a good impersonation of Bogle.
Harsha Bogle. Harsha.
Yeah, so they had him commentating on it, and then they live streamed it on YouTube and got these gamblers in Russia to bet on it. I don't know how much money they
See, I want to know. So these Russians that are gambling on cricket, I mean, how do they know about cricket?
Well, obviously they don't.
If you looked at the footage, I suspect they don't.
No. What are they thinking? YouTube will have a gamble on that.
I think people will bet on anything, won't they?
We could have done it in our back garden. We could have just done it in our back garden with an old top on.
We should ask our listeners to come up with something that we could do.
Yes.
Come on.
Yeah.
Let's do something mischievous. I'm in for a bit of mischievousness.
Wow. Try and con some Russian gamblers.
Yeah.
Well, it might be a dangerous game.
Yeah, I'm not taking the Russians' money.
No, we won't do that. We won't do that. And there was a big fight as well, wasn't there? There was a huge fight somewhere.
Oh, a league game, yeah, in Stoke. Wow. Stoke, that was awful. I saw that on Twitter. I hope that's investigated properly, because I think the problem now is in league, it's hard to get umpires. So I think players from teams are having to umpire. And I've seen it at my local club. It does cause friction.
Yeah.
Both, if you give one of your own players out, it causes friction.
Yeah.
If you give it not out, it causes friction.
Yeah.
We really do need to try and understand where are all the umpires? Is umpiring at grassroots level? Is it a dying art?
100%. It definitely is. I mean, I sort of play on the weekend.
Can we, as a podcast, bring the art of Saturday afternoon umpiring back?
Yeah,
it's cool. You know, has it ever been cool?
No,
I'm not sure it's ever been cool. But it's all. You don't. I mean, nowadays you wouldn't even get a tea, would you?
You don't get tea.
No.
You get abused.
Yeah,
a lot of abuse.
You get what? What do you get? £30?
I don't know what the
deal is.
Well, I think we should campaign to get the art of umpiring back.
Yeah,
and even if it's just one umpire, because that one umpire can just stand at the decision making, and a teammate does the square leg, and he's just obviously run outs, and that's got to be a little bit precarious at times. But at least you have one neutral person who's umpiring the game, deciding on LBWs, caught behinds, no balls, etc.
When I played,
it's a lot of people, right? There are a lot of games on a every weekend.
But Ben, it was a disgrace. That clip, there was people with bats whacking people. I'm sorry, that's a disgrace.
Yeah, it looked pretty bad.
Awful.
Yeah. Who wants to be an umpire though and go and stand in the field on a Saturday and a Sunday all day?
Right. Should we have a route around in the mailbag?
Yes.
So we got one from Michael Bond, who I presume is not the creator of Paddington Bear, a different Michael Bond.
You look like Paddington Bear with that hat on.
Actually, we talked about that. So, hi guys. He wanted to put forward Saresbury Athletic in Hampshire, saying it's a great family club. They've gone to a new level this year, doing comedy nights, theme nights. And the latest big thing the club signed up for is Runs for Research. Have you guys heard of this? So it's a charity raises money for Alzheimer's research, all based on how players perform.
Great.
So they've got 32 players. They're all signed up, and they pledge 5p a run, 50p a wicket. This wouldn't cost me a lot if I was signed up to it. And at the end of the season, each player donates the money according to how well they've done. And it's a great way of raising causes. And then we've got another email from someone else putting forward their club, Ellis Hewins. He plays for Barwell Cricket Club in Leicestershire. And he thinks that his club, I mean, a lot of clubs make this claim, but he thinks that they play the longest running, continuously played club game in history. And that's between Barwell Cricket Club and Coventry and North Warwickshire Cricket Club. And the first was held in 1807.
Right.
And it's been held every year since, meaning this year's game is the 215th edition, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah. I love the one about
the hopper.
I love the one about the charity stuff, because when I played, all the fines for being late and, dropping catches and everything always just went into the sort of the pool for the end of season sort of beer, didn't it, really? So why don't you just do that and give it to charity so it's actually going to a worthy cause instead of just throwing it down your neck? You can always get yourself a few beers for the end of season bash. I think that's a fantastic idea.
Good idea. By the way, we really should start thinking about a date.
Oh,
for
what,
when
do we
we're
go on a
going.
date, Mike?
Yeah.
That's a bit presumptuous.
To be fair, I've got a bit of time on my hands at the minute. I think we really need to start thinking of a date in October where we will be going to one of these cricket clubs.
Yes.
So we can actually start saying to clubs, okay, you can email in, we'll choose one, but this is the date that we're going. So we actually know that we're going to be available, if you know what I mean.
Yes. Do we have to
Should
play
probably
it?
try and make it early in October.
No, we're
because
not
otherwise the
playing,
weather
Phil. We're just going to go to the cricket club and we'll record the podcast as a podcast at that cricket club, and we'll have a bit of fun with the crowd.
Yeah, and I like that. And if I have a bowl for an over or something like that, we can put some money on how many runs you can hit off me. And if you have
have a bowl.
Well, I might have a bowl just for an over, and we can do some runs for charity there. Or if you bat for an over, if someone gets you out, Mike, you know, there can be 500 quid on your middle stump. How about that?
Well, that's there's always a chance that that might happen. You know, 10%. You know what I mean, Phil?
You could do a WG Grace and drape your watch over the middle.
What a good idea.
As usual, please do get in touch with us on Twitter or by email. We love getting your messages. The address is cricketclub@telegraph.co.uk. We'd particularly like to hear about your brilliant cricket-related nicknames, nominations for truly calamitous performances on the pitch that are worthy of inclusion on the Colin Grantham Dishonours Board, and suggestions for which club should be the venue for a live podcast at the end of the season. The umpires have got their light meters out. I think that's all we've got time for today. A big thank you to Mike and Phil, and even bigger thank you to Ravi Ashwin for joining us. Mike, Phil and I will be back next week. We'll be reflecting on the ODI series with India, which will have wrapped up by then, and discussing the series with South Africa, which gets underway next Tuesday. Until then, you can catch up on past episodes in which we chat to, among others, Rob Key, David Gower, Marcus Trescothick, Jeremy Coney and Trent Bolt. They are all available on the Vaughany and Tuffers Cricket Club channel, wherever it is you download your podcasts. Thank you for listening to this episode, and please do subscribe to ensure you don't miss any future delights. Until next week, goodbye.